Last week saw huge announcements from ChatGPT and OpenAI about their platform and specifically things going on inside of the ChatGPT app, including the launch of new apps within the ChatGPT app and also the development of new ways of making agents via their platform. Let's get into it. Hey folks, welcome back. Hope you're doing well. And whilst I was away, a bunch of announcements came out, including this announcement from OpenAI about the changes that are coming to the Chat app and also the agents platform. And so in this video, I'm going to give you a rundown of what has happened and what changes are coming, some of which are available now, some of which are coming in weeks to come, and give you some ideas about why this matters so much. So let's get into what was announced. Well, ChatGPT had one of their big events called Dev Day over in San Francisco. And in the main keynote announcement from Sam Altman and co at OpenAI, they announced some big changes, many other things, including all of the crazy stuff that's happening with Sora 2 at the moment, which we won't get into and save that for another video. But for now, let's talk about the two big announcements that I think are going to really matter to brands, to companies, organizations, ministries, or whoever you are, nonprofits. You will find some value in this. The two big things that they announced are apps coming to the ChatGPT app itself, as well as a new way of creating AI agents using the OpenAI platform. Both of these things have got very different applications, but are going to make a big difference to your experience of using OpenAI's tools, particularly if you're using them for consumer productivity, business use, even if you're not a developer. So let's break down what happened. And they kicked the whole thing off with this video, which I think does a good explainer of what's going on. So let's take a look. As you can see from the video, they have launched with a number of key platform partners, including, for example, this variant from Spotify. And what loads into the app layer now when you're having a conversation, either because you've mentioned it, similar to mentioning someone on X or Twitter, or if you're having a conversation about something that they think can help you, you'll get inline app previews from the apps that have been enabled. Now, this is something that developers have to build with the platform and do themselves. And they now have apps actually load into the channel of ChatGPT. This is going to work on the desktop app to begin with, and I imagine the mobile app very soon, if not immediately upon release. They've got this nice card interface that allows you to slide new bits of content in, app iframe in for certain parts of your content, using the way that they have formatted it. And they showcase a number of examples in more detail at the keynote, including doing a live Figma sketch, creating things using Canva, and more kind of creative tasks as well with things like using Spotify and others. So really interesting move here from OpenAI. And I think they are going to do a lot more with this in the coming weeks and months as people begin to build these apps out. This is a big shift. It basically takes us from using OpenAI's tools, and particularly using ChatGPT, from just being a kind of prompt in, prompt out kind of variation. We've obviously seen tool usage for a while inside of ChatGPT, things like being able to use the canvas, being able to do web search and things like deep research. But now with the release of both their agent kit technology, which we'll come on to in a minute, and the ChatGPT Apps platform, it does begin to make it feel more like they are building their own kind of app store experience. And this feels like a bit of an app store moment that we saw in the early 2010s when iOS launched the App Store at Apple, and then obviously the Google Play Store as well over on the Android platform. And it makes the whole tool into more of an ecosystem and a series of products that you can both build for, publish to, and also in the future, I think, monetize. Now, they also mentioned within inside of this that there is a new way of building agents as well. The big agent builder platform, you can see if you go and check out the website. There's a whole blog post about it. You can actually go and use it now as well. To do this, you're going to need to have a platform account with OpenAI rather than just a ChatGPT account. It's free to register for, but you do need to add a credit card if you are churning through tokens on the back end. And it works very similar to a number of the other agent building platforms that we've seen out there from the likes of Zapier as well, and more professional tools from our friends over at VoiceFlow that do this kind of build WYSIWYG style, what you see is what you get style of building, where you can connect together different nodes, give them different processes. Now, I wouldn't say this is for the complete layman, but if you've got some experience being around this type of technology, then you'll be able to get yourself building an agent pretty quick. I was at the hackathon last week with our friends over at Glue over in Colorado, and we very quickly were able to go in and use the agent kit to put together a little agent that would answer questions when prompted about what was going on at the hackathon, just using the database from the hackathon website as its source material. But of course, you can do much more interesting things like that, like connecting data sources and APIs from external places. And then you can deploy those inside of ChatGPT as an endpoint using the MCP server or directly into your own product. And that might be into a voice interface, could be into a web interface, mobile app, or somewhere else. And I suppose it's quite a simple, easy to use workflow, similar to the likes of Zapier, NAN, or VoiceFlow. What's probably more interesting for most of us is the addition of these apps into ChatGPT, as we saw in the keynote. Now, for developers, this is really interesting. It's going to give you the ability to build custom UIs that work specifically into some different types of frames that fit within the ChatGPT interface, so it kind of all feels nice and seamless. It's going to allow you to integrate the tools that you have on the back end of your application. So if you've got APIs, SDKs, webhooks set up already, those actions can now be triggered by the ChatGPT agent, either dynamically, as in it works out that it might need it, it might know that your app has that and can go pull from it, or it can obviously be surfaced if a user is app mentioning your app in. So if you app mention Spotify, and maybe there is a endpoint within the Spotify API that allows you to set up a playlist, you can trigger that from ChatGPT. Now, there's going to be new ways of discovering what apps are available. One of the ways is just going to be ambiently. You're having a conversation, for example, about travel plans, and maybe it suggests you Booking.com to book a hotel, or Uber to book some kind of car or a vehicle of choice. But also you'll be able to find these actively by app mentioning them. So we can imagine that lots of brands are going to want to start promoting through social media, through radio and TV and other places, the fact that they have an app in the ecosystem. And there is going to be some kind of app library, some kind of app store style interface that was announced, although I haven't seen that come live yet, but I'm sure that will come in time. Now, for users, this really changes the dynamic, I think, of having a ChatGPT app. It is going to keep more people inside of the app to begin with. And this may also be a reason why some brands decide to resist doing this, because obviously you are going to begin to direct traffic away from the app layer itself. And even those earlier integrations with some of the connectors and even your data coming through ChatGPT has done that in part. We've seen for things like restaurant bookings, for travel appointments and stuff along those lines. So this creates even one more barrier of separation. The big difference, though, is that you are still going to get some of that brand equity come through. You know, your app is going to be seen inside of ChatGPT. You're going to get some of that content that comes through in the app styling. So you can think of this as kind of partly an enhancement to the search and kind of agent connectivity that was already there, but it's also moving more in the direction of it being a kind of full app store. Why does this make a difference for us as those that might create these things for brands or for ministries and nonprofits? Well, the first thing is that it's going to make your data more findable inside of ChatGPT. We've seen this emerging trend for the past few years. For a while, we've been able to influence the content that lives inside of these engines by populating what's on the web and trying to influence the algorithm and the attention heads inside of the language model to pay more attention to your branded content. This takes this a full step forward, which allows the engine to just find your brand by app mentioning it or invoking it. The second thing is it's going to allow you to do more guided journeys through the content that you have. At the moment, it's a bit hit and miss whether or not one of these engines finds information from your brand and sticks to it. You might have multiple queries in a chain going with ChatGPT, Claude, or Perplexity, and sometimes it might go reference the information from your brand website. Sometimes it might go off to Amazon and find product information there, or Wikipedia. By being able to invoke this app, it kind of anchors the conversation that the user is having with ChatGPT to the information that lives inside of your branded application, meaning that you're going to be able to move people through more guided journeys. Now, for ministries and nonprofits, this means you might be able to guide a donor through a journey, might mean that you can get a volunteer to kind of take a personalized path. And for a brand, it means that you can have a more of a kind of personal ambassador of the brand inside of ChatGPT, acting more as an agent inside of that environment. So it gives you a bit more control over the experience that people have, and obviously brings in that brand content and tone of voice into the experience too. Now, on the agent builder side, as I mentioned before, this makes it a bit more accessible, but it's certainly not basic. You don't need a full stack developer to go and build agents with the new agent builder platform. It's a lot more flexible than before, but there are some really simple automations in there, things like being able to put in automated guardrails, for example, to detect PII data if you're in the European Union, particularly worrying about things like GDPR. It's also able to screen people out based upon age questionnaires and things like that. And you can use if, then, and that rules to guide people into different parts of your agent. But it's not fully simple to do, and you do need a bit of technical prowess to do it. However, getting content into the agent is super easy, even just by uploading a Markdown or PDF file at one of the turns inside of the conversation builder. It will anchor the conversation it has in that content and only refer to it using a kind of RAG style retrieval augmented generation development. So that's super useful, but definitely worth going and taking a bit more look at. So let me know if that'd be useful, but certainly good for small teams, simple experiments. And if you need to build just a simple agent bot that maybe lives on your company, organization, church website, then this would be a great place to get started. One of the things that I thought it would be worth pointing out is that we've got a lot of learnings of how this might play out now from our experience over the years with Alexa. Both in my time at Lego and through the journey of us building the Vixen Labs business, we work very closely with Amazon on them bringing more and more brands in different ways to the platform of Alexa. Discoverability was always one of the big issues, that users didn't remember what to say to find the app. Now, this is still going to be a problem, even inside of ChatGPT, although at least the power of a language model can do that intent workout. You can determine that when I'm talking about ordering a pizza, that I'm actually wanting to order a pizza maybe for now and therefore recommend me Domino's, as opposed to planning to make a pizza at the weekend, in which case recommend me ingredients from my supermarket Amazon link. So that makes it a little bit easier to handle. The thing that is going to be interesting is how do they handle invocation conflicts in different parts of the world? Are you going to be able to have a brand that has the same name in different places? How does it know to route you to like the special logic of Amazon inside of the UK versus the US if you were talking to it, or the same for Ticketmaster, for example, that has a different app in the US to the UK? How are you going to handle that? And the third thing that I think brands are going to really care about is this kind of opaque ranking system. What matters on the back end to make your app rank higher than others? Is there going to be some kind of SEO type benefit to how you've built your app? Is it going to be who OpenAI do commercial deals with? Or, of course, are you going to be able to pay your way into it? I think all of those things are yet to be seen. We've got a lot of learnings here from what's gone in the voice ecosystem. This was obviously pre-AI days. And I think that we're seeing a lot of this get resolved with tech like Alexa Plus and Google Gemini coming to the Google Home products. But still, it's been a problem, one that they're going to have to work a way around. Now, all of this leads to kind of an emerging ecosystem of kind of voice and vision and different multi-agent experiences. And I think the things that we might see come very soon is one is voice mode. At the moment, it seems like these apps can only be invoked inside of the desktop app and inside of the visual interface. It'd be interesting if you can talk to the voice mode of this, particularly if you are in transit. I use ChatGPT's voice mode a lot when I'm in the car. When I was on my way driving back to the airport last week, having a 40-minute conversation with it, debriefing me on all the different things that I've been up to so it can log them into actions. Really good use case for that. But there might have been times when I wanted to, kind of look up flight prices from booking.com at the same time, or help me put together a playlist for, kind of walk-on music at my next keynote, like whatever it might be. Can I do that through voice mode? At the moment, it's not obvious I can. Maybe I will be able to in the future. The second is the MCP integrations. We've already seen lots of apps already go to the effort of building an MCP server. This is kind of like HTTP. It's a kind of routing connector. It allows you to connect one app to another agent. That setup already exists. Maybe brands and businesses won't go to the effort of building a ChatGPT app. We will wait and see. And of course, then there's competition. Not everyone's using ChatGPT, even though they announced last week 800 million users of ChatGPT around the world. Many more are also using Perplexity or Gemini or Claude or other systems. And that means that brands and businesses, organizations, ministries, you're going to have to build these things across all of those different surface areas if you really want to get complete coverage. And I think Google Gemini in particular is really placed here to challenge OpenAI because they've got such a lot of experience from the actions on Google platform. And obviously they already have their own app store. And so maybe how much of a lift is it for Android developers to push themselves to, just kind of enable some kind of app interface that can get called natively by Gemini through the Play Store? Lots to be seen. So we've got an emerging ecosystem. And I think overall, this really changes the dynamic of us interacting with the web. And I've been saying this for some time, is that the web is changing fundamentally. When you no longer have to worry about what the layout of a website looks like, because ultimately a website is just an interface for humans to access data. And an AI can do this natively. Well, the assistant becomes the logical place you spend more of your time browsing it. Inside of the assistant, now you've got app layer, and underpinning all of that, you've got the search layer, all of that living inside of your assistant. So I think this is going to be a big shift towards that more agentic assistant-led experience of the web and less time spent on the desktop. But I would love your thoughts. Let me know what you think. What apps do you want to see inside of ChatGPT? Are you planning on using them? What other tools do you think we are going to need to build for this ecosystem? Let me know your thoughts. And if you found this video helpful or you would like to have a conversation about how to build some of these apps for your own brand, business, ministry, nonprofit, or whatever it is you're working on, I'd love to hear from you. Hope you're doing well, friends. If you stayed to the end, I would love it if you would drop this a like, a comment, maybe if subscribed, depending on where you are. And if you have stayed to the end, here's a little other tidbit. I am working on my first book, which is coming out next summer, being published by Bloomsbury, about the AI organization, how to embed AI into your organization, how to twin the organization's brain and make it digital, how to build a really strong gut instinct, AI ethics grounded into the way you're doing things, and then worry about the hands and the feet, the people. How's it going to change your organizational structure in the future? So if you're interested in that, then make sure you're following along here, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much.